So as you guys know, we have recently finished a couple Tengu Plant tournaments in the Tengu Plant Discord. One being Tangu Rumble 15, which is a multi-day event where you have 72 hours to play out your match, as well as Tangu Mania 7, which is our world qualifier tournament. So we got people winning some free money and qualifying for worlds for later in the season, which is pretty cool to look at. So wanted to go over the top cut of these tournaments so you guys could see. As always, if you guys want to participate, the links to the Discords to join are in the description of my video, so you guys can look forward to that. But we'll just kind of hop right into it, talk about the meta breakdowns for the Tangu Rumble, and then we'll jump into Tangu Mania and look at some of these top cut decks and kind of see what we think about them. So starting with Tangu Rumble 15, we had a 22-person tournament. We saw Catsith being the most represented deck in the format, which is like, honestly, like this deck has been rising in popularity. Like it's a really fun engine to mess with, and it's like, yeah, I don't know, it's a pretty cool deck. We got 2 agents, 2 heroes, 2 Nuria being the other deck that saw a decent chunk of representation, which is kind of weird. Not something you typically see. And then 13 other, where we had a bunch of one-off lists. Not like a super big tournament, but, you know, big enough so we can jump into what the top 8 breakdown looked like for it. So, starting out in 7th, 8th place, we had Wiz Kalina, who was playing Tengu Plants. And this is kind of a weird build, I guess I'll say, because typically Tengu Plant builds revolve around hand traps a lot, right? Like, you'll see typically, you know, multiple copies of Veiler, multiple copies of Maxx C in the main deck. This build, however, is on a single hand trap, which is 1 copy of Effect Veiler in the main, which is really spicy. I'm not sure why we're opting to do that. We also don't have any Veiler inside and 2 Maxx C inside, which I find crazy. I feel like Tengu Plants is a deck that's pretty vulnerable to things like Trishula, where like Trishula hurts really bad if you get hit with it. So for me, it's kind of weird to like not opt in for heavier hand traps. And then we have 2 Maxx C and 2 DD Crow on the side. I feel like you would surely want an extra Veiler over like the extra copy of these. But, you know, I'm not sure. It obviously worked to some degree. We're also on 2 copies of Caius, which is not typically seen these days. And then we're going for some Deep Prison, some extra back row, which, you know, does help Tengu Plants because they really do want to stick their monsters. It's pretty important for them. So, yeah, congratulations to Wiz Kalina for making top 8 with Tengu Plants. Moving on to the next top 8 deck, we have Blaze Phoenix, who got another top with Morphtronics. Blaze Phoenix was able to win a tournament with this previously, and now this is the 2nd appearance of Morphtronics in a top cut, which is really, really cool to see. It's good to see that he's trying to innovate this deck. I know he's taken it into things like Tangu Mania, and he's actively trying to qualify for Worlds with Morphtronics, which I think is really, really based. It's a super cool decision to go for. This deck is pretty strong. Like, you know, not a lot of people understand what these cards do. But basically, the whole deck revolves around making like really huge extensions with machine duplication plays. And it's not even all that Maxx C-able in your combo because none of the special summons, like with Self-On, your special summons aren't guaranteed. So if they chain Maxx C to a Self-On effect, then like if you miss, then they just lose a Maxx C, and that's kind of funny. As well as like Remoten can summon multiple copies, banish to add cards, so you're going to see a lot of pluses without going any further on the special summonings. But like duplication on Remoten to like banish cards in your grave, then exceed with them to make Levier, and like it opens up a whole can of worms of combos. So this deck is really, really cool. It's a lot of fun. If you haven't messed with them, I would definitely recommend it. Like this deck looks way more troll than it is. It's actually a lot of fun. So I definitely encourage you guys giving it a try. That being said, congratulations to Blaze Phoenix for making another top cut appearance with Morphtronics. It's really cool to see that innovation. So moving on to 5th, 6th, we have Grace with Agents. And we're looking at a Trooper Agent build, which is kind of cool. I do like the approach of Trooper Agents. I think it's kind of fun. Like, the basic concept is you try to mill your boss monsters and fairies, so then you can like call the Haunted back a Hyperion or a Christia to either pop monsters or pop cards your opponent controls or negate their special summons, which is pretty good. I like that we have a copy of Herald of Greenlight in the side. That's something a lot of agent players have been using to try to prevent like turn 1 Royal Tribute. It's like the best counterplay they have for the Gravekeeper matchup, and we can see there's a decent amount of siding for the Gravekeeper matchup and the likes of Closed Forest, because that is a very difficult matchup for agents. That being said, pretty standard run-of-the-mill Trooper Agents build. Just the only traps we got is a Dust Shoot, the 2 Call the Haunted, and then the Troopers. We're opting to only run 2 copies of Venus, which I personally don't know. I think you're better off cutting like the 3rd Max C, or cutting one of these Max Cs down to put in the 3rd copy of Venus, because the reality of Agents is, while it does kind of need 3 Earth and 3 Tour Guide, the best turn 1 play you have in this deck is Venus, right? You turn 1, summon the Venus, you get your Gachi, that's your best play, because everything else is kind of slow tempo, especially while playing going second. So like, Agents can go second with Tour Guide and make Leviathan, but that's like not a great use of your Tour Guide, and that doesn't necessarily get your engine going. Typically, turn 1, you summon Tour Guide to get Sangan, so then Sangan can search Earth, and Earth can search Venus, which is pretty slow. Or you have Earth to search Venus, which is still really slow, especially if you're going second. So like, you really want to see Venus in your opening hand, especially going second, because it's just your best starting play. So putting this down to 2 makes some sense because of the Trooper starting line, but it is a bit sketchy to me, so I don't know. I don't know if I would opt to cut the Venus or not, but yeah, we'll move on to the other 5th, 6th place deck. We have Agents yet again. This is Evolution with Agents, and this is basically your standard build that we typically see. I think 3 Max Cs is too heavy, but, you know, is what it is. I personally have kind of been thinking about Agents, how they could actually benefit from running Orange Light and Valor, because this card is just so oppressive against so many decks, and Valor is also really good against so many decks, especially in the mirror match. So like, you could like hard swing a lot of matchups by having Herald of Orange Light and Valor in your deck. I actually think it'd be really, really annoying for like decks like Tengu Plants and stuff to ever even resolve anything, which could give you a decent edge. Haven't been able to experiment with it. I'm not really one to mess with Agents much anymore, but yeah, that is something I have thought about. But for the most part, this is basically your standard run-of-the-mill agent list. We've seen it many times before. So we're going to move on to top 4, and this deck is really, really cool. This was recently featured on Playtest IRL's channel, because Amazing Mike Man like won 2 Tengu flights with this deck, as well as placing top 4 in Rumble. This is his Naturia stun deck, and this list is so cool. The concept of it is Cliff and Cherries kind of just permanently float. You use Rat to float into them as well, and then Gigantes can banish them to special summon itself, and you basically can control the game by either tributing for Vanity's Fiend or controlling the board with Thunder King, and then you have a bunch of back row. You can also very easily make a Naturia Beast with like Giant Rat or Naturia Cliff and Glow Bulb or Cherries. So the goal here of this deck is like, let's try to turbo out normal summoning Vanity's Fiend and making a Naturia Beast, which like most decks just cannot out that, like, those 2 monsters on the board, especially some of the common meta decks. And then the smart thing he does is, instead of playing around Bamboo Shoot, he sides the Bamboo Shoot for matchups into things like Heroes or any stun deck, which is super, super good, because like, this card isn't great against the likes of like Agents and some of the more like chaos oriented builds, but it's phenomenal against those back row decks. It's basically a win condition. If you can summon Bamboo Shoot versus the likes of Heroes, outside of Honest, they don't have an out. So this list is super cool. We on the standard Mistworm, you know, he's basically making Jurax 2 Electric Boogaloo. But I really, really like this list. I think it'd be a lot of fun to give this list a try. I've also been tampering with Naturia Cliff and the likes of Rockstun, so I might do a video on that later if you guys are interested in seeing that build. But yeah, overall, this is a really, really cool build. And we will now move on to the other third, fourth place, which is Splevin with TG. And this is kind of your standard run-of-the-mill TG. The only thing is a lot of people have been opting to cut TGM1, and it looks like Splevin is bringing it back, which is pretty cool to see. This card does have a lot of playmaking abilities. The downside to it is, with TGs, they have kind of this raw weakness of traps like TG1EM1 and Horn of the Phantom Beast are only strong if you have an existing monster on the field. They don't really reclaim board control. They just make it really good when you have board control, which can be problematic. Like, for example, if you like set a Warwolf, they summon Thunder King and are able to, like, they Heavy Storm Thunder King, tack over, you're kind of like doomed, you know, unless you have a way to like get another TG on the field. A lot of times with a low monster count, you run the risk of opening all spells and traps, and some of these spells and traps are like require a monster to be on the field to be useful. Like Skill Drain is kind of like that, but TGM1 and Horn of the Phantom Beast are. So you do open up the opportunity to brick, but it's still overall a pretty solid list. I feel like this is like a standard approach to the deck, so can't really complain too much, but it is just something to consider when running cards like TG1EM1 and Horn of the Phantom Beast. Alright, moving on. I don't have a download link, so I apologize if this looks blurry, but Rob the Man topped with Hero Plant. This was second place, and this is such a cool list. Something that I've been thinking about a lot is a lot of people talk about how BLS is like so oppressive in Tengu Plant format. You know, they talk about how good it is, which it is a really good card, and it's like relatively generic with the other cards in the format, like Tour Guide and Valor and stuff like that. It does have that bit of it in there, but Dark monsters are typically pretty good, and a lot of people ignore just how strong Dark Arm Dragon is as a boss monster, and this is a list that gets to abuse both, right? And so we have a nice like synchro package. We can use the likes of Plague Spreader to put a Destiny draw on top of the deck, and then you can use Diamond Dude to mill it and get a draw 2 on the next turn and a level 6 synchro. A lot of little cool gimmicky combos with this deck, and this is kind of like one of the first iterations we've seen of this. I also love that we're on Destiny Hero Plasma. I think that card is so cool. And, you know, we got Scapegoat. It has great synergy with the Plant Engine, and it also has great synergy with Destiny Hero Plasma. So this list is just really innovative, really cool to see. And yeah, I don't know. Shout out to Rob the Man. This was a really, really cool list. I'm glad to see it. All right, and last but not least, we have our first place winner of Tangu Rumble, which was Loger with Cat Sith Chaos. And we're opting for the Gravekeeper Spy build with, you know, which is like pretty common these days. Some people opt for just the 2 Spy. I personally think if you're going to do it all in on the whole package, yes, you run the risk of breaking on Descendant, but it is what it is. That's just kind of the cost of it. That being said, I do think this is a deck, you know, we were just talking about Rob the Man's list with like Dark Arm Dragon. I do think this is a deck that has a phenomenal Dark Arm Dragon line with the if you're on multiple Spy and multiple Tour Guide, like you do run enough Darks to sufficiently fill your graveyard with them. Like a Tour Guide into Leviathan Dragon can get you there, and like using Chaos Sorcerer can modulate the grave by just banishing one of your extra Darks if you have too many. So I think Cat Sith Chaos could abuse Dark Armed a bit as a really powerful card in the format. Not sure. I don't know if anyone's tested with it, so if you have, let me know in the comments. But yeah, congrats to Loger for winning with the Cat Sith list. This list is very similar to the one I think we saw at YCS Vegas that did really, really well. So yeah, shout out to him for taking them fat dubs. But we will now move on to Tangu Mania 7, which this one was to qualify for Worlds. This is a tournament that's going to be taken a bit more seriously. There's money on the line. So we automatically out the gate see kind of more of those like common meta decks, 5 Tengu Plant, 5 Hero, 5 Agents. It's crazy that they're all in ratios of 5. But this was a 40-person tournament for Cat Sith. Cat Sith is also pretty popular. And then we had 2 Jurak, which is kind of bizarre that we saw Jurak being the one that we see multiples of. And then we have 17 other decks, you know, basically all over the place. Machine OTK. I caught a lot of these on my stream. Half of this tournament was streamed on my channel. The other half was streamed on Playtest IRL. In fact, me and Playtest IRL were going to go over these decks in this video, and we recorded it. We had it all good, and then my audio was just turbo scuffed, so I wasn't able to upload that version. Like, it's literally unplayable. It's awful. So it really sucks because Playtest IRL had fantastic commentary on a lot of these decks, had a lot of good concepts and good things to say. So I'm trying to repeat some of the things he mentioned because they were really good as we go through these deck lists. But shout out to Playtest IRL. So if you want to catch this tournament, you can watch the first half on my channel, and the second half will be on his past streams on his channel. Typically, I stream these tournaments the entire way through, but I had something going on with my day job that day, so I was unable to do the full stream. That being said, we'll kind of look at what the top 8 breakdown looked like for Tangu Mania. So moving on to 7th, 8th place, we had Becci with Agents. And honestly, this list isn't too bad. It's another standard agent list, but I do like the Mirror Force. This is something Playtest IRL mentioned to me, was like, Mirror Force is like a phenomenal one-off trap in Tengu plant or in agents because people don't typically expect to see a lot of traps, and if they do, it's like torrential or summon interruption. So they really typically won't respect a Mirror Force, and they might attack and lose a bunch of monsters. So this is a way to blow your opponent out in a kind of spicy way, which I do kind of like. We're also on the double Herald of Greenlight, which I think is really, really good to prevent, once again, the turn 1 Royal Tribute, stuff like that. So, yeah, congratulations to Becci for taking, I think, getting their Worlds Qualifier spot, and as well as topping with Agents. So we'll move on to the other 7th, 8th deck, and this is so cool, man. I have always said I thought this deck was good, and people didn't believe me, and then Simply Zerg comes out, proves the world wrong, that Cloudian Synchro is a deck to be reckoned with, and I love the approach that they took with this build. It is so cool because we're on Herald of Orange Light, since Cloudian Turbulence, Smoke Ball, they're all fairies, and he even is running a copy of Gel and Duo, which can like crash with Tengus and is kind of like cheeky in its own way. It's also a light, and so that like can't be destroyed by battle, so it sets up for these chaos monsters. But this is a really cool deck. Like, Christia is such a smart adaptation to this build with the Herald of Orange Light. I definitely saw on stream Simply Zerg winning with Christia on the field, and it was just like, wow, like, how is that even happening? But if you don't understand the basic concept of this deck, the reason why the Cloudian engine is good with the plant engine is because it's kind of like Tengu plants, but there's like a higher ceiling. So like with Tengu, if you have Tengu plus like a glow up bulb, that doesn't really convert much, but the Cloudian Turbulence, that converts into like Librarian Catastor, which is like okay. But the dream scenario is that you can get access to Formula Synchron and Librarian and Formula, right, for the draw 2, and then having the Black Rose plus a Light in the Dark. It does a lot of stuff. And so with Tengu, you kind of have to like sit there and use Dandy to get you the 1-star non-tuner so you can make Librarian Formula. But with this deck, Cloudian Turbulence just can't be destroyed by battle while it's in face-up attack position. So, and then when it's normal summon, you place a fog counter on it, and you can remove that fog counter to special summon your Cloudian Smoke Ball from your deck or grave. So what this does is, let's say you have Turbulence and you have 1-for-1. You can 1-for-1. You can summon Turbulence, special summon Smoke Ball, 1-for-1 summon Glow Up, and then you can Synchro for 5 and then Glow Up effect into a 2, and that's how you get your combo. So this just opens up some pretty cool combos with this card specifically. And it's not limited to like one use. Like each one can summon back the Smoke Ball because it can come from deck or graveyard. So this also creates cool plays with like Trishula, where you summon Turbulence and then you banish summon the Smoke Ball, banish Lone Fire for Spore, and then make a Trish. So just kind of higher ceiling plays. So it's a bit of a trade-off, but it's not necessarily like better or worse. It's just kind of its own separate play style. But I do think it's good and it's really cool. And so shout out to Simply Zerg for taking a new strategy and bringing it to a tournament and doing well with it, because I don't think I've ever seen anyone give this a try in a lot of the tournaments we have. Maybe a couple, but this obviously is the first time it has seen success, so that's really, really sick. So shout out to Simply Zerg for doing that. Moving on to the other 5th, 6th deck, or no, this is 5th, 6th. So we have Shamu with Tengu Cat Sith Plant. So with Cat Sith being popular, people are just splashing it into everything, and that was kind of the theme of this tournament, as you'll see later. But yeah, it's basically Tengu plants just slapping in some Cat Sith. The thing that I like about it is there's some nice synergies between Phoenix Wing and, Cat Sith, obviously, but then you can use Phoenix Wing to dump your other cards like Dandy or Glow Up to kind of do like get more tuners in the grave or extend your plays. So there is some synergies there. This deck is also opting for a single copy of Effect Veiler in the main deck, and that is the only hand trap, which is once again spicy. I think if you're opting to run like a Cat Sith plant deck, right, you have to cut things out of the Tengu plant engine to make this function. And I'm honestly shocked we're still on Spirit Reaper, because I feel like that's one of the cards people tend to cut from Tengu, like the standard like Tengu plant list. And so it's interesting that we're keeping it in, and we opted to basically just cut all hand traps. But we've got the BLS, the Chaos Orcs, so we have the nice Chaos engine. A single copy of Trigodia, which honestly isn't bad. I think Trigodia is like good in plants for the most part. Or like has good potential in plants. It has a lot of synergies because you have so much level modulation and so many like stealing a level 3 monster with like Kushano and then bringing back the Kushano and normal summoning it. There's a lot of weird interactions like that. So it's pretty cool. So shout out to Shamu for winning or for topping with Tengu Cat-Sith Plant, yet another like unique deck that we haven't really seen. Moving on, we have Roger Smith, who also got 5th, 6th with his agents. Roger Smith is obviously a phenomenal player. I think a lot of people respect him as a player. And we're opting for pretty standard build, but we got a little Econ in here. Econ is really cool, and there's a sided one, and I'm assuming this is for the mirror match, because if your opponent is playing agents and they turn 1 summon Venus, and then you can like turn 1 normal summon Tour Guide, get Sangan, and then Econ tribute your Sangan and steal their Venus. Then you get to exceed with their Venus and get Shine Balls off of it, so you can make Gotchi plus a rank 3 and keep their Venus under your rank 3, so they don't have like the banish fodder for Hyperion. So I think this card, I mean, I'm always an Econ fan. I think it's one of the best cards in Tengu Plant format in general. I think stealing monsters is always OP. But I do like it in Agents as well, and it's cool to see that adaptation coming out. A lot of other people are messing with it now too. All right, moving on. We have Richard with Cat-Sith Nordic. Once again, we're just splashing Cat-Sith into everything. I'm not sure what the synergies are between the Cat-Sith engine and Nordic. I don't really know, because with like you're kind of incentivized to make Leviathan Dragon when you go into Kushano. So like you're not typically gonna have something destroyed by battle. The only thing I could think that makes this kind of interesting is like if they Valor a Tangnostir, you could like pitch a Cat-Sith, pop their monster, and then like make a rank 3 or a level 6 Synchro, which is kind of cool. Extra deck space must be tight, because we got Ancient Fairy Dragon in the side and for the Closed Forest, which is kind of spicy. But yeah, I'm not really sure what the synergies are, but it is a really interesting list, and obviously it performed well because it made it all the way to top 4 and also got Richard his Worlds Qualifier spot. So shout out to Richard for doing that. That's really cool. He's always been a fan of the Nordic, and this is a very creative way to use them. I'm just really not sure what the synergies are, so if he's in the comments, you can let me know. I mean, obviously, I guess Goldfax is a light, so you got some Chaos stuff, but you don't have Chaos Orcs, you just have BLS, so I don't know. Richard, fill me in. Let me know why you approached it with this, you know? All right, moving on to the other deck we had in top 4, which this is like a first, I think. Maybe not a first, but it's been a while since we've last seen this make top cut, which is we had Yvion with Mist Valley, and this is a really clean and cool list. If you guys watch my stream, I think round 1 I spectated this deck, and like right out the gate he did like some of the coolest combo I've ever seen out of this list. Like it started with like a Tour Guide into Creation Resonator, and then basically turned into like a level 8 Synchro with Creation Resonator coming back off of the level 8 Synchro. I don't even know how it happened. You'll have to go back and watch it because the combo lines of this list are really cool. Something Playtest IRL and I were talking about, which we thought was really nice, was this basically has a lot of Falcon Punch functionality. It has Swords of the Vealing Light and Fiendish Chain, which like Swords is like a really pesky card in general. A lot of people, you don't really want to MST this card, right? Because it's going to destroy itself. But then you also have Mist Valley Falcon able to bounce it. So like they kind of have to, or you'll never be able to attack. And then, you know, you got the Fiendish Chain, so you have that like Falcon Punch like resource looping a little bit. But you also have the combo centric of the Mist Valley, Divine Wind of the Mist Valley and stuff like that. So it is really cool to see. I like that we're on 1 copy of Blast Fan because you can brick on this card, as well as Gen X Neutron to search Birdman, because this whole deck just operates off of Birdman. And the Tour Guide into Creation Resonator is really smart because you can summon Tour Guide and then bounce this to the hand for Birdman, and that's how you can get a special summon. It basically gets you access, lets you use Tour Guide while also letting this be a pseudo wind monster that you can put on the field for your plays to go off, which I think is really cool. So Shout out to Yavion for making top 4 with this list. This is really innovative, super cool to see. Really happy to see some more experimentation with Mist Valleys because I actually think they're pretty good. All right, into top 2, we have Pillage, who is playing Chaos Stun. And I think we've seen this list from them before. It's like Pill Lord or Pillage. I don't know which one they go by. But we've got, you know, basically Protect the Thunder King deck. We're summoning Thunder King. We're setting, you know, things like Spell Shield type 8. And we got Lances. We're just trying to protect it. If it dies, we're going to banish it later. And then we're going to bring it back with Tour Guide. It's really annoying to deal with. And I know a lot of people... like, you know, it's like frustrating to play against. So it's like, you know, your typical chaos control stun list. But yeah, I know that Pillage has been working on this list for a while and slowly perfecting it. We got a bunch of really unique cards in the side deck, like Curse Seal, the Forbidden Spell. We've got Transmigration Prophecy, Green Kappa, Electric Virus, just a bunch of random stuff. So kind of interesting to see. But congratulations to them for taking 2nd place with Chaos Stun. Really cool to see them make yet another appearance, I think, in a Tangu Mania Top Cut. But speaking of secondary appearances, we have in 1st place, we had Jaden Yuki winning Tangu Mania for the 2nd time, being one of the only players to do that. I think the only player to do that, to win Tangu Mania twice with Tengu plants. So they ended up winning, I think they won Tangu Mania before with Tengu plants before as well. So they won it twice with the same deck, which is pretty impressive, I'm not going to lie. So Jaden Yuki, always like kind of a proven Tengu plant player, really good. And this also speaks lengths to maybe how they will perform at Worlds. You know, they've already qualified for Worlds. So if they can win a 2nd Tengu Mania, there's a good chance they have a really strong fighting chance at Worlds. So I'm excited to see how they opt to perform. But hey, they raked in that cash money. They won the mat. They get all that stuff. Good on them. Happy for you, Jaden Yuki. Congratulations for catching the dub. Got a bunch of crazy one-offs in your side, like Smashing Ground. According to Playtest IRL, a lot of these cards were super relevant for dealing with chaos control, like the Snowman Eater and Smashing Ground and stuff was just pesky enough to out a lot of problem cards. So pretty cool, but I think that's the Jaden Yuki special. We typically run a bunch of one-ofs in the side. We go for that Highlander side deck. So yeah, either way, super cool to see a bunch of people innovating with new decks in Tengu Plant format. I think like both of these tournaments had brand new decks we have never seen before still, so that just shows that the format is still continuing to grow and we're seeing new things, which I'm really happy about. And a lot of, while we're seeing like, you know, a lot of like some of the similar decks, there's a lot of innovation taking place. A lot of people from Edison kind of taking what they learned from there and like, you know, converting it into decks here. And I think that's super cool. So yeah. Shout out to Playtest IRL for doing this video with me initially, even though we could have him in here, but he helped me out with the stream. So make sure you guys check out his channel. You know, gotta give the shout out because, you know, he deserves it. I feel bad that I had to redo this video, but we're just gonna give a quick shout out to my Patreons. So shout out to Eric Gagnon, Grant Johnson, Beast Eyes, Slap God, My Dude, Photo Shooty, Brian Ford, Sven Olbrand. But that's going to wrap it up for this video, guys. Let me know in the comments what you think. But thank you so much for watching. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe, and have a great time doing today.